meantime, we wanted to turn to another big national headline that we've been following very closely here in the Carolinas as well, and that is the flooding and the devastation that has been underway in Texas Hill Country in recent days. And unfortunately, late this evening, we did see the death toll there rising, now topping 100 people who are confirmed dead, more than 80 of those folks in the hard-hit community of Kerr County. And we did want to talk about some of the helpers that have since dispatched from the Carolinas going out to Texas to try to be of comfort and of service to those who are in need so badly right now. We want to join now with Andrew Metcalf, who is a program manager with Samaritan's Purse, of course, a local organization for us here in the Charlotte area. Andrew, thank you so much for taking some time to speak with us. It sounds like you just landed there in Texas and have started your work there. Can you tell us what y'all have been able to do since you arrived?
Absolutely. Samaritan's Purse staff were on the ground yesterday morning, beginning our assessment of Kerr County. It became very evident very quickly. This was an area of great need, and we have dispatched staff, equipment, to run a volunteer response to assist homeowners with their cleanup inside and outside their homes. And just to let them know that they are not alone in the midst of their disaster, that they are loved by God, they're loved by Jesus, and that God's people love them and want to come alongside them and help them.
Now, I know that y'all have been so crucial for various natural disasters and responding to that, including, most recently for our area here in North Carolina, responding to Hurricane Helene. I'm just curious, how you speak to folks who are going through, what is seemingly just the worst moments of their lives, and how you bring comfort and maybe what all of us can learn as far as, passing along similar messages to neighbors in need and how maybe we could help if we're watching this at home and feeling like, I just need to jump in and help.
Absolutely. We all know that no matter where the disaster is, it could be one of the worst days of the lives of our homeowners that have been enduring this, enduring the trauma that they've been through, but also the storms that they had go in their own lives going on prior to this event, and how this event has thrown all of those coping mechanisms out of whack for them. What we really want to do is come alongside. We want to give them an opportunity to share their story. There's oftentimes they've been so focused on everything that has been dealing with the response. They haven't taken the time to share what's been happening, to process the grief they're going through. So we have chaplains from the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association that come alongside us to lend that care in spiritual and emotional needs. They're trained to deal with anyone that's been going through crisis and just to love them and minister to them. And then our volunteers come in and they help with that cleanup, and they also offer those shoulders to cry on, those loving smiles, and just an army of orange that can come in and say, we are here to help. You are not alone in this.
No, I mean, inevitably with any sort of natural disaster that, we cover and we look into and we try to get community stories, there is always such heartbreak in some of these headlines. And I think maybe one of the headlines that is grabbing people a lot when it comes to this particular situation happening in Texas Hill Country, the fact that, there are so many young people who have sadly lost their lives. There's a story about that Christian girls camp where unfortunately more than 20 of those girls and the counselors with that camp were confirmed to be dead. There's a separate story that NBC News just reported on about two sisters who were 13 and 11. They were missing. They were actually found, sadly, they were found deceased, and they were recovered. Actually, they were holding hands. I think a lot of those headlines, that hurts people, including us here when we have to report on that. What sort of stories are you hearing? And, if you can share, any of the uplifting stories that you're seeing, I think folks, always want to hear that as well.
Well, we are obviously hearing the same stories that we're hearing on the news. We do want to just come alongside all of those families who have lost loved ones to let them know that they're loved and cared about. And our chaplains are willing to come out and do that. We've had uplifting stories by just the amount of love and outpouring of volunteerism we've seen in this community. Just everyone wanting to come alongside and just lift up those that are hurting right now. And so it's just been fantastic to see that outpouring of volunteerism and just to see it continue as we get to begin helping our volunteer efforts of helping those homeowners begin the first steps of their recovery.
Now, I know as a helper, you probably are also staying attuned to, any sort of warnings, as far as potential weather impacts to come. I know throughout the day that that area had been told to stay on alert for possibly more flooding. It sounded like a flood watch in the area was just allowed to expire about a half hour ago. Are you hearing anything from emergency crews out there as far as communications to you about the possibility that there could be even more threats down the line? And if so, how are you and your team preparing for that?
We're constantly monitoring those weather threats throughout the day. We're also, because of the safety of our volunteers is paramount, the local government here has done a fantastic job of continuing to give us situation reports, and local law enforcement from all over the state has been doing a great job of allowing people to stay safe out there.
Andrew, I'm just kind of curious how you got into this line of work and service. I mean, it seems like a really tough role to take on. I'm sure you've seen a lot of devastation and heartbreak in the work that you've done, but clearly this is something that is a calling to you for you to want to go and help your neighbors out in this way.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was in high school, my family went through a period of homelessness, and it was at that point when I really got to see faith in action along the lines of my local church coming beside us to help us out, but also just being able to see my faith become more real each and every day as I prayed to the Lord for his provision. And we got to see that each and every day. And since that point in my life, just seeing the example of wonderful people doing that, I wanted to do the same for others. And very graciously, God has given me the opportunity to work with a phenomenal organization to be able to let people know, just as we felt alone in those moments and people came alongside us, I have the privilege to do that now and be the one that can come alongside those that might be feeling alone.
There are likely lots of folks who are watching what's happening in Texas and maybe feeling like there's nothing that they can do, or they feel helpless, or maybe they just feel despair and they're not sure what else they can do in the situation. What would be your message to them, for folks who are watching and maybe hurting as they see some of these headlines and maybe even wishing that they could do more but not knowing where to start?
Absolutely. We need people to pray anywhere. Prayer is going to be something that sustains us throughout our volunteer response here. If people would like to donate, they can visit SamaritansPurse.org. They can also visit SamaritansPurse.org if they want to sign up for volunteer options.
Okay. Andrew, is there anything you'd like to share with us that we haven't asked you about the situation, about the experience that your volunteers are having out there, just about, the images that you're seeing, firsthand? Anything before we wrap things up here?
Just a continued request for prayer. There's a lot of people out here that are hurting, and they just need each and every person to have them in their thoughts and prayers so that they can just know God's love for them while they're out here. And we want to just be able to reflect that. So we're just really grateful for that opportunity.
Andrew Metcalf with Samaritan's Purse, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. I know it's probably been a long, I guess at this point, day and a half since you've been out there, and your volunteers as well, doing some really hard work, but important work. So we appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
All right, folks, thanks for sticking with us here on Live Impact News. Of course, we'll continue to keep you updated on the situation out of Texas. As we mentioned, unfortunately, the death toll has risen. As of just this evening, we got the latest update. At least 104 people have died across 6 counties. Most of the deaths, unfortunately, reported in a single community, Kerr County, where officials have reported 84 deaths, 56 of them adults, 28 children.